overhaul. So let's take a look as to what is making headlines in America under Trump's presidency at the moment. Now, the U.S. has in fact the U.S. lower house has passed Donald Trump's proposed multi-billion-dollar budget bill, the big, beautiful bill, as he termed it, after the vote was delayed on Wednesday by the rebellious Republicans. The resolution just barely managed to scrape through with a narrow 216 to 214 majority. The two Republicans voted against the budget bill after 24 hours of intense discussions of getting the conservative leaders on board with Trump's budget reforms that include some sweeping tax cuts and also a slash in government spending. Now, tech billionaire Elon Musk also attended the White House cabinet meeting on Thursday. Now, Elon Musk was being appointed by Donald Trump to head the Department of Government Efficiency, issued a statement on the massive budget cuts in the near future. The Tesla and the SpaceX CEO said that he anticipates saving nearly about $150 billion for the fiscal year 2026 by reducing what he terms as wasteful expenditure and fraud. Now, Trump has in fact tasked Musk with slashing government spending, for which DOGE was specifically set up under the current administration. Now, speaking of budget cuts, the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has also announced the Defense Department's resolve to cut about $5.1 billion in terms of spending. Calling it a wasteful expense, the Pentagon chief said that the money spent on climate and diversity initiatives will now be slashed. Now, Pete Hegseth also added that DOGE headed by Elon Musk will have broad access to end programs from the previous administration. Now, Hegseth's latest announcement is in addition to his order last month terminating $580 million in terms of spending at the Department of Defense. Now, illegal immigration into the United States will have to mandatorily, all illegal immigrants will have to mandatorily carry documentation and should register with the federal government or face consequences. This development comes after a federal judge passed an order allowing the Trump administration to enforce this as a law. Now, this ruling comes after the Trump administration argued that the authorities are in fact enforcing a mandate that has existed for all non-American citizens. Following the ruling, the Department of Homeland Security has issued a statement asking all non-Americans living in the country for over 30 days to register by Friday. The U.S. Supreme Court has in fact upheld a judge's order requiring Donald Trump's administration to facilitate the return of a Salvadoran man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador by the U.S. authorities. The Supreme Court, in an unsigned decision, said that the judge's order requires the government to facilitate Abrigo Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Now, there appears to be no end to the US-China war on trade tariffs, even though the US stock markets on Friday morning showed some hopes of overcoming the carnage. Now, China has retaliated by raising its levies on the US products to 125%, even as it calls the race of imposing more and more tariffs nothing but a joke. But what isn't a joke is the impact that this is having on the global trading systems and on the global economy. Take a look.
The gloves are off. It's almost turned into a no-limits poker duel with neither side willing to blink. Yes, the US and China are at war on the trade field. The latest salvo, Beijing announced 125% reciprocal tariffs on all US imports on Friday. As Xi Jinping broke his silence on the issue, China has labeled US tariffs a numbers game with no economic relevance that will become a joke, as it filed a lawsuit with the WTO complaining of the rules-based multilateral trading system being undermined.
China has repeatedly stated its solemn position on tariffs. There are no winners in a tariff and trade war. China is unwilling but unafraid to engage in it. I want to stress that if the United States truly wants to resolve the issue through dialogue and negotiation, it should cease extreme pressure and reckless actions. Any dialogue must be based on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. If the US is determined to fight a tariff and trade war, China will fight till the end.
互惠的基础上，
Just 10 days, and what a drastic turnaround it's been between the world's biggest trading partners. US tariffs on Chinese goods that stood at 10% on the 1st of April are now at 145%. This is already in effect. China has retaliated. Tariffs on American goods coming into China will be taxed at 125% effective from Saturday. The fallouts are already visible. US retailers are suspending orders and halting shipments as the global supply chain grinds to a near halt. The US and China make up 43% of global GDP. An all-out trade war could weigh on global growth, investment and market stability. China has already restricted exports of strategic metals like germanium and gallium, vital for defense and AI applications. On the other side, the US could intensify its technology blockade, targeting Chinese access to advanced microchips. Analysts also warn of a global dumping risk. China is already running a $1 trillion goods surplus, with excess products like steel potentially flooding global markets at artificially low prices. The ripple effects of this economic confrontation are now being felt worldwide. There are clear signals also of China looking for partners to stand up against the US tariff offensive. On a visit to Spain, President Xi called for China and Europe coming together to fulfill international responsibilities and resist what he called unilateral bullying practices. This one follows a similar outreach to India. The punch and counterpunch and the battle for one-upmanship is far from over, and there's little doubting the potential this has to throw global trade regimes completely out of gear. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what's actually happening in this trade war between the United States and China, we're joined in this broadcast by Ms. Jennifer Zheng, who is a member of International Press Association and also the host of Inconvenient Truths by Jennifer Zheng, which aims at offering first-hand information and unique insights about China and the CCP. Ms. Zheng, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Let me start off by asking you this. We are in the midst of what can only be described as a full-blown trade war. 145% tariffs is what the United States has imposed on Chinese products into America. China has responded by 125% tariffs. Give us a sense of the kind of impact this is likely to have on these two financial giants.
I think, first of all, the effect on the Chinese economy would be huge, I think bigger than what it will affect the US, of course, because of the imbalance of the import and export amount. Actually, it is absolutely devastating for the Chinese economy, which is always already on the brink of collapsing, and the employment is rising. And very, very soon, like I have shared several notices from factories in China, factories are already notifying their employees that we are going to on hold because of the tariff issue. So they are giving their employees holidays or unpaid holidays, and they don't know how long it will last. And today we saw more reports about, the ships, planes are all unholding, and no ships are running from China to the US right now. So this is absolutely devastating to the US, to the Chinese economy. On the US side, of course, I think US would also suffer because, we have been relying on the Chinese goods for so many years. So it takes time to find replacement for these goods, but that is not an unsolvable problem. We suffer a little bit, but I think very quickly, other countries and other markets, other producers will replace China. But of course, there will be a period of chaos and uncertainty, unsettlement. But
right.
I think the result will be much, much worse to the Chinese economy.
period of chaos and a period of uncertainty is how you're describing it. But where will China take all of these goods that it produces? Because the United States of America at this moment, according to Trump, has a budget deficit because of importing Chinese goods to the tune of $350 to $400 billion. So where will the Chinese go with these goods? Where would they want to dump them?
I think, of course, the first thing they will think about is, I think, EU market, and of course all other market. As long as they can find it, they would like to have it. And the CCP just have a so-called neighboring countries conference to try to discuss how they can ally with their neighboring countries, maybe to fight against the US. But I don't think it is possible for them to find another market which can absorb as much as Chinese goods as the US.
Right.
It is absolutely impossible.
All right, interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Jennifer Jeng, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
Now, in the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu, the Bharatiya Janata Party and the AIADMK have announced their alliance for the state assembly elections that are slated for next year. Now, addressing a joint press conference, both parties said that they'll be contesting the state elections as part of the National Democratic Alliance, and Home Minister Amit Shah has said that the AIADMK's General Secretary and the former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister E. Palaniswamy will be leading the NDA alliance in the elections. He further added that some smaller parties will also join in the NDA in the coming days. After losing to the DMK in the 2021 Tamil Nadu elections, the AIADMK and the BJP had parted ways in the state. Now, both parties, in fact, contested the 2024 parliamentary polls separately. Now, the election, in fact, saw the DMK consolidating its hold in the state, with the party, along with its allies, sweeping all the parliamentary seats in the 2024 parliamentary polls. On Friday, Home Minister Amit Shah attacked the DMK over what he called the deteriorating law and order situation in the state.
डीएमके सरकार ने 39,000 करोड़ के शराब घोटाला, सैंड माइनिंग स्कैम, एनर्जी स्कैम, ईएल कॉट स्कैम, ट्रांसपोर्ट का स्कैम, मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग स्कैम, न्यूट्रिशन किट स्कैम, फ्री धोती स्कैम, कैश फॉर जॉब, रेड सैंड स्मगलिंग और मनरेगा स्कैम। इसके अलावा भी बहुत सारे स्कैम का जवाब पहले तमिलनाडु की जनता को देना चाहिए।
In a social media post, Amit Shah also confirmed that there will be a change of guard in Tamil Nadu's BJP leadership. The party is expected to hold elections for the state party unit president's post. Now, Amit Shah has also dismissed the DMK's campaign in the contentious three-language formula, and the delimitation issue is called them diversionary tactics to deflect attention from the DMK government's failures, as he puts it. And WION's Siddharth MP has been tracking the story very closely for us and has sent us this report from Tamil Nadu.
In the presence of Home Minister Amit Shah and former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Edappadi K. Palaniswamy, the AIADMK and the BJP announced their electoral alliance, which is known as the National Democratic Alliance, for the 2026 Tamil Nadu polls. The assembly polls in Tamil Nadu are scheduled to be held in summer 2026. There's almost a year to go for the assembly polls in 2026, and we can expect more smaller parties to join the NDA fold in the coming months. Let's also keep in mind that in the 2024 parliamentary elections, the AIADMK and BJP fought as separate units, but both of them received a severe drubbing at the hands of DMK and their allies. In 2021, ADMK and BJP had fought together, but at that time too, they lost. The incumbent ADMK party had lost after a tie-up with the BJP, and that is what prompted, the split between the two. And now both these parties, after two losses in two elections, now they've decided to come back as part of the NDA alliance. Home Minister Amit Shah also made severe allegations against Tamil Nadu's incumbent DMK party and the DMK government led by Chief Minister Stalin. He went on to say that that the DMK was raising issues including delimitation and the three-language formula, only to divert from the important issues in the state such as the law and order problems and also the attacks against women and the minority communities and backward communities. From Chennai, Siddharth MP, WION World is One.
Now, bidding farewell to his official residence, South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol in fact returned to his private home. As hundreds of supporters gathered at the gate, Yoon briefly stopped to hug and shake hands with the crowd. Take a look at these images. Political uncertainty looms over Istanbul just weeks after the opposition leader and the city's mayor was arrested on charges of corruption. Now, earlier in the day, thousands of opposition supporters were seen waiting outside of the court where Ekrem İmamoğlu appeared for the first time since his arrest. The hearing is in fact being held inside of the same courthouse prison complex where İmamoğlu is jailed since last month. The supporters have called for the mayor and other opposition leaders to be released from prison.
We are looking for rights, law and justice. Our mayor is inside even though he did not commit any crime. Our youth are inside. Those who make any sound are inside. Now everyone is inside. That is why we are all outside. We are looking for justice for our rights, our law for our mayors and for our children, and we will achieve this.
I don't think any of our mayors, journalists, students or anyone deserves this unlawful judiciary. If there is rights, justice and law in Turkey, I think they should be released immediately. I never believe in the corruption or theft of any of our mayors, including Mayor Ekrem.
Now, İmamoğlu's arrest is part of a larger crackdown on the opposition by the Erdogan government. At least about 7 elected opposition mayors have been removed from office after Erdogan's ruling party faced a setback in the municipal elections that were held last year. Now, Erdogan's People's Alliance has fallen to the second position with 22 victories, while a collective opposition has taken control of nearly 45 municipalities. Now, New Zealand's parliament has rejected a controversial bill that aims to change how the Treaty of Waitangi is interpreted in law. A bill on the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi brought forward by the ACT party has been shut down in the parliament by a margin of 112 votes to just 11. Now, there were cheers and applause that erupted before the lawmakers and the public sang a Waita, a traditional Maori song, after the result was announced. The Treaty of Waitangi is in fact considered New Zealand's founding document. It was signed in 1840 by the British Crown and about 500 Maori chiefs to establish a nation-state. The treaty covers issues including land and cultural rights and Maori relations with the Crown. But here's where it gets complicated. There were actually two versions of the treaty, one in English and then one in Maori, and they didn't say exactly the same thing. While both promised Maoris the same rights as the British citizens, they disagreed on how much power the chiefs were actually giving up. So what exactly was in the Treaty Principles Bill? Now, the bill aimed to settle what the Treaty of Waitangi means. It proposed setting fixed definitions for each part of the treaty and making it clear that any rights under it should apply to all New Zealanders and not just to the Maoris. It was introduced by ACT party leader David Seymour, who is a Maori himself. Nasemo argued that current interpretations of the treaty are unfair as they give special rights based on race.
Well, the truth is that we are all equal deep down, but too many of our policies aim to treat people differently based on their ancestry. This is why we have to remove that idea that New Zealanders have different rights and are ranked by the arrival of their ancestors.
Although the bill has been rejected, the wider debate about the treaty's role in New Zealand law is far from over. The government has signalled that further reviews could still be on the table, but for now, though, this vote is being seen as a clear stand in support of the treaty and of Maori rights.
This bill hasn't been stopped. This bill has been absolutely annihilated. Mr. Speaker, Aotearoa New Zealand made it clear to our country that it does not support this bill. We are not divided, but united, with the 90% of our country's submissions saying no.
In Tanzania, the opposition leader Tundu Lissu has been charged with treason, and this is causing unrest just months before the country heads to elections in October. Lissu, who leads the main opposition party, the Kadima, was arrested on Wednesday night right after speaking at a public rally in Mbinga. The police say that he was inciting the public, but Lissu and his supporters say that he was simply calling for electoral reforms to ensure free and fair polls. On Thursday, Lissu in fact appeared at a court in Dar es Salaam, more than 1,000 kilometers from where he was picked up. But despite the serious charge, he showed up in good spirits, surrounded by lawyers and fellow party members. However, Lissu was denied bail by the court.
Now, since this court does not have the jurisdiction, owing to the fact that the case is supposed to be heard by the High Court, this matter has been mentioned, and since the offence is not bailable, the chairman of Chadema, Mr. Lissu, has not been granted bail, nor has he said anything regarding the charge.
In 2017, 3 years before the last election, Lissu survived an assassination attempt after being shot at least 16 times. His arrest was drawn sharp criticism from human rights groups who accused President Samia Suluhu Hassan's government of cracking down on dissent. Now, the government, on the other hand, denies any wrongdoing. With elections approaching, tensions between the ruling party and the opposition continue to rise. All right, let's also now take a quick look as to what else is making headlines from the world of elections and politics. Now, protests erupted in Serbia's capital on Thursday after the authorities expelled several foreign citizens, and those thrown out of the country had been critical of Serbia's government. In the past few months, dozens of foreign citizens have been expelled or barred from entering into the country as the government has accused them of being security risk for the country. The Thursday's demonstration is the latest in months of rallies and protests against the incumbent president's regime that has been accused of massive corruption. The Gabon's junta chief held his final campaign rally on Thursday ahead of a pivotal election, the first one since a coup in 2023. Now, General Brice Oligui Nguema, who is also the transitional president, had announced his candidacy in a surprise move after promising that power will be handed over to a civilian leadership. Voting will take place on Saturday between 6:30 a.m. GMT and 5 p.m. GMT. Now, Nguema's biggest challenge is Alan Claude Billy, the former Prime Minister under the ousted leader Ali Bongo. The Election Commission will declare the poll results by the 16th of April. And with that is a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
As Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's legal matter heats up, we tell you about some of the biggest celebrity lawsuits of all time.
यहाँ धर्म और जाति के नाम पर लोगों को लड़ाना बड़ा ही सरल है.
Meet Indian actor Pratik Gandhi as he talks about Phule. And dive into the musical world with Sarod maestro Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Busting the myths around tokenization, catch me on Token Money Magnet, only on WION.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour. Now, Iran seeks a real and a fair agreement with Washington on its nuclear program. This, as Tehran sets the stage for a diplomatic showdown in Oman tomorrow. The European Union asserts that there is no alternative to diplomacy to resolve the standoff over Iran's nuclear program ahead of a weekend talks between Tehran and the United States. Now, thousands of protesters in Sana'a expressed solidarity with the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and denounced the recent American bombings in Yemen. The protesters waved the Palestinian flags and raised rifles and symbolic cardboard swords.